cloud. So good morning, everybody. My name is Louise Fondren. For those of you who may not know me, I am the founder of Partners for Possibility, this program we're going to be talking about, and I'm also the co-author of the new Partners for Possibility book. The other person who definitely did more of the work that I did is Theo Garin. He wrote the words and I put it into place and created the narrative, the PFP narrative around it. So Theo, just welcome to you. Today is part of our series of virtual book launches where we're going to dive into the book. We're going to look at just some of the stories that we've featured in the book, and we're going to hear some of the voices, and I'm specifically very much looking forward to hearing from the people who are on the call today. So just want to acknowledge everybody who are on the call. We have with us, we had 96 people registered, so it's always interesting to see how many of those people will actually show up on the day. 22 of them are from Multitech. So Thomas Holtz sent out an invitation to his community, and literally within hours, people said, I want to be on that call because my CEO is speaking. So Thomas, you've clearly got a ability to pull the crowd. We have with us, or we had registered 23 business leaders who've been involved in Partners for Possibility. We have 15 principals who've been involved in Partners for Possibility. Quite a few number of our Partners for Possibility team from around the country. We're about 70 people now in the team. Many of them are on the call. We have my mother. I'm just seeing my mother here. It's always nice for my mum when my mum's in the call. And as I said earlier, we have Theo Garin. So welcome to everybody, and a particular welcome, a very special welcome to Kamala Pillay, who is the new PFP program director. So she's taking over from me in terms of the day-to-day running of the program. And then, so in terms of how this session is going to be run, I'll be the host, but we're here to hear from Bob and Jillian and Peter and Thomas, and then from other people who've been part of the program so far. But as always, and so there's going to be a combination of, we're going to have a small breakout group, we're going to we're going to watch a video together, we're going to hear from those people, and then we're going to create a space for an open conversation. I just want to tell you that the chat line is open all the time. So if anybody at any point want to make a comment on the chat line, I'll keep my eyes on that, and then we'll weave your comment into the program if that's appropriate. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to just create an opportunity for you to be connected. Now, in this particular session, we have some of South Africa's gold dust. And Zoom has this amazing, wonderful technology that says, assign people to breakout rooms randomly. And you just never know who you're going to end up with in a breakout room. We're going to create that opportunity. And what I want to say to you before you go to your breakout room is just be prepared to be surprised and inspired with who you're going to be in the room. And this is what we're going to ask. So we believe in small group conversations. We believe that in community, the small group is the unit of transformation. That's with space where every voice is being heard. And it kind of speaks to the name of our organization, which is Symphonia, which means the sounding together of all the voices. So in your small group, you have two jobs. One is just to introduce yourself. Who are you? What kind of work do you do? Where are you from? Anything that you want to share about yourself. And then I want you to share with the other people in your breakout room, why did you decide to join this call? What are you particularly curious about? So there was an invitation, it had some pictures on it, and there was a description of what the session was going to be about. I'm interested, and we are interested to know, what about that invitation spoke to you? And we are going to ask our panelists to also go into the breakout rooms. Anybody who absolutely does not feel comfortable to go into a breakout room with people that you don't know, you can just choose not to accept the invitation. Although I am going to invite you to, I'm going to challenge you to go into that breakout room. So we're going to have about, let's see how long. We're going to have a 7-minute breakout conversation. So there's going to be a maximum of 4 people in a breakout group, and 7 minutes for everybody to just introduce yourself, and then to share with the other 3 people in your group, why did you say yes to this invitation? What were you curious about? So I'm creating the rooms. You should now have in front of you an invitation to say, please join breakout room number whatever. You just click on that breakout room and it will take you straight to the breakout room. Zara and Tanya, I see there's a breakout room number 11 has only 2 people in. So if you are able to join that breakout group, that would be great. Hi, Jill. You had my mum with you. She hates this stuff. Hello, Annemin. It's lovely to see you with us. So if people are willing and able to switch their videos on, it's just so much nicer to see faces than black boxes with numbers and names.
There was just one lady in our group, Christine, we couldn't speak to her.
Yeah, sometimes no idea what that is. So thank you very much, everybody, for participating, for introducing yourself, for sharing why you showed up today. So hopefully that's going to set us up now for the rest of the session. I want to tell a quick story. Partners Possibility is full of stories. We have many, many stories. One of the stories is about 5 or 6 years ago, we had Trevor Manuel as a keynote speaker at one of our celebration events in Cape Town. And it felt like the family gathering. So there we were, all of us extremely excited about being together, and we just spoke into this kind of space of people who felt like family. At the end of the session, one of the people came to me. She said, you know, you have to do a better job of bringing those of us who haven't been part of this journey into this conversation, because we have no idea what you're talking about. We think, you know, it feels like you're a tribe of your own, and you just, so I've decided after that we will in future always start our conversations or our sessions with just a brief introduction to Partners Possibility. And the question is always, which of these will we use? So this morning, we're going to watch a video. It's a 5-minute video, and it speaks to what we've been doing over the last 10 years, but specifically, it's a reminder that Partners for Possibility is designed as a leadership development program. And today, you're going to hear quite a bit of that. So if you could just indulge in us as a community. For those of you who know the organization well, this will be old news for you. For some of you for whom this is the very first time you attend a Partners Possibility event, we hope this is going to be an insightful kind of glimpse into this work that we're doing before we hear from the people you've all come to hear. So this is just 4 minutes or 5 minutes, and it's the background to Partners Possibility as a leadership development program. Enjoy.
Extraordinary leaders not only have the ability to build a real sense of community among colleagues, teams, and departments, but the power to create hope and change throughout our country. They empower, inspire, and uplift individuals in their own organizations, as well as in under-resourced schools where leadership skills are so desperately needed. These are the leaders that can bring South Africans together to initiate a ripple effect of positive change. These are the kind of leaders our country needs.
Research shows that leaders learn more about leadership from being immersed in a challenging environment where there are no easy answers than from going to business school. Partners for Possibility is an award-winning field immersion experience for leadership development. Business leaders and school principals from under-resourced communities are partnered in a co-action and co-learning partnership to achieve maximum leadership for both parties. This multifaceted year-long program is carefully structured to incorporate 16 aspects of leadership development that build leadership capacity in different ways. The innovative 70-20-10 model, incorporating action learning, social learning, and formal training, is designed to enable long-term sustainable change through resilient, socially conscious leadership. The experience is structured to deliver future-proof leaders who know how to apply key leadership skills in the real world.
by being outside the office, you learn a lot more about your own self-leadership and general leadership than you'd ever learn from a business school.
Partners for Possibility has taught me to become a positive deviant and get rid of the negative norm.
I learned that the most creative and innovative solutions come when you really listen to people.
I've learned that people come up with their own solutions when you really listen to them with full attention.
Being outside of my own context and connecting with people that I wouldn't normally do gave me a deep sense of appreciation and understanding for the work that we still need to do in this country.
The Partners for Possibility program is strengthening the fabric of South African society by creating opportunities for people to work together across traditional boundaries. By spending time in communities outside their offices, business leaders develop a better understanding of the critical issues facing South Africa. The program is not only benefiting businesses. The development of socially conscious leaders has a significant impact within South African school communities too. Principals are empowered with skills, knowledge, and confidence to manage and lead their schools more efficiently, motivate their teachers, involve parents, and build networks of support to address the school's most pressing needs. Since the launch of the program, Partners for Possibility has strengthened leadership capacity in and around more than 1,000 schools across 9 provinces. This has enriched the lives of more than 23,000 teachers and more than 750,000 learners.
What also we learn from the Partners for Possibilities approach is that leadership is at the center of all developments in organizations and society. I note that the leadership approach targets the principal, but listening to the stories from the principals and the CEOs or the executives, it's very clear that the leadership approach is the leadership that plants seeds of leadership in everyone.
Leaders who see possibilities instead of problems, who radiate with transformative energy, creating ripples of hope and positive change in the office and beyond. To join the more than 340 organizations that are contributing to South Africa's well-being while developing the kind of leaders that our country dearly needs, email pfp@symphonia.net or visit pfp4sa.org.
I want to be a pilot. I want to be an engineer, a doctor. I want to be a robotic engineer.
So thank you very much for all of your listening, beautiful listening, delicious attention. We're now going to, without any further ado, introduce you to some of these transformational leaders that we talk about in the video. And the very first one of those is going to be Bob Head. So I have the privilege of sharing a little bit of background on each of these people, and Bob is no exception. So my story about Bob is that my life was changed by the Dinner King scenarios. On the 5th of May 2009, when the Dinner King scenarios were published, I made a declaration that I'm going to dedicate the rest of my, or the next decade of my professional life to making Walk Together work. No idea that Bob Head was connected to this. And then I found out that the Dinner King scenarios was sponsored by Nedbank and Old Mutual, and I got interested to know, how did that all happen? Long story short, I ended up in Bob Head's office in Pretoria when he was working at SARS many years ago. And because someone told me that Bob was instrumental in making Dinner King work. I found out later that Dinner King happened because of Bob. Bob was irritated with all the negativity after Polokwane and made a decision that he, as a Brit living in South Africa, but cares deeply about South Africa, was going to make a contribution. And that's why, and then I told him what we were doing with Partners Possibility. I said, Bob, this is a response to Dinner King. It's a Walk Together scenario program. And Bob said, well, in that case, I have to be involved. And he immediately said yes to this invitation. And then a few months or few weeks later, we partnered him with Jane Charane. Now, Jane did say that she was going to try and join us today. I don't know. She's a school principal, and school principals are incredibly busy at the moment. So can't see Jane on the screen now, but she may kind of show up later or make an appearance. But so we've asked Bob to share something. So Bob's story, Bob and Jane's story, are captured in is captured in chapter 3 of the book. So Kamala saying Jane is on the call. Jane, can you just unmute yourself, show your face, just say hello so that we can know who you are, because you've made a massive contribution to Bob's life.
Hi, Louise. I'm here and I've been to the group. So my name is Jane. I'm Bob's partner. Happy to see you guys, you and Bob. It has been quite a long time and I'm here.
Thank you, Jane. I did ask Jane, I said you have to join as Bob's accountability partner. Bob can't speak about you without you in the room. So Bob, please know that you have an accountability and so Jane's going to listen carefully and will respond to what Bob said. So Bob, over to you. Why tell us your story? It's chapter 3 in the book. So in the book we've got many pages, but we want to hear your potted summary, your executive summary of the story we wrote in chapter 3.
Okay, thank you very much, Louise. It's a pleasure to be here. And it's a pleasure Jane's on the call as well. She is my principal at our school, Magatho Primary School in Salisbury, which services an informal settlement. And she's done an awesome job, I have to say. Built a team for delivery, took brave decisions to get rid of teachers that were not up to the job, and turned around the school, moved it from underperforming to top 10 for the region, which has been a fantastic experience. I guess if we're going to do a bit of an advert for Partners for Possibility, what I gained out of it, so just as context, I've worked for 40 plus years. I used to be in charge of Old Mutual and Nedbank turnaround and spent time sorting out SAA. He's trying to get money for SAA, as well as SARS. And so quite a lot of experience in life, but it taught me several things. First of all, and Jane better confirm this, otherwise I'll have to resort to violence. First of all, listening skills. So listen for the problem. The second thing is you don't have any power, so you only have influence, which is a bit of a shame, but anyway, I try my best to influence Jane. Unique and new problems, so it actually improved your problem solving. I'd never come across witchcraft as a particular problem in management before, but we had a few issues that we had to deal with in the early days there. And I think moving from vision to action to results. So Jane and I used to sit down every 2 weeks, and I would have I would document. I can touch type, so I'd have our action list and move from an idea through to implementation and delivery. So from an HR point of view, I think it's a great program because it helped develop me. I'm now in my 60s. I can still be developed. I also think there's an opportunity also for businesses to actually build their recruitment pipeline as well. So if you've got a location, just go and infiltrate those schools and spot talent and actually bring it on through. Also, I found actually it's quite useful from a marketing and understanding your market point of view. So SARS used to have a password reset question, which was, what is your favorite holiday location? And in Salisbury and Atteridgeville, there aren't too many people who actually do go on holiday, and you suddenly realize you're asking rather white middle class sort of questions. And then I think also from a corporate social responsibility point of view and triple BEE, so I touch 1,200 people with my involvement. We actually do things based on understanding. Jane always tells the story that we've had about 8 or 9 football strips, but no one at the corporates has ever checked to see whether we've got a football pitch, which we don't have. And so I think it's led to change within the school. We've worked together, we've supported each other, and it's been the most immense amount of fun, and I've enjoyed it hugely. And I think I'll probably stop there, Louise. But you better turn yourself off mute.
I see that. So that just gives us a kind of taster. I'm gonna tease this out a bit, and then I'm gonna ask Jane as well, because we've given you a slot of 5 minutes. We want to use that time well. So Bob, you and Jane have been up to some interesting experiences. One has to do with you teaching home and economic sciences, or economic sciences to the grade, I think it was the grade 4s or the grade 6s, the grade 6s or 7s. Do you want to share that story with us? And so this is you and Jane tag teaming using the manual that was given by the Department of Education.
Yeah. So the Department of Basic Education. Department of Basic Education gave us it's a very good book, actually, a good economics book. So Jane and I would go along periodically and do a bit of teaching together, except she can teach and I can only lecture. So I appreciated the difference between lecturing and teaching quite rapidly. But in this textbook, it actually said in chapter 4, the advantages of being an informal trader is you don't pay tax, and the disadvantages of being a formal trader is you do pay tax. And at that time I was working for SARS. So I took a scan of the page, sent it to Previn Gordon and said, next cabinet meeting, you might want to take this up with the Department of Basic Education, because I think they're teaching slightly the wrong thing here.
So that's always one of my wonderful stories about what happened there in Asheville. I see Jane has turned her video on. Jane, do you want to talk about just maybe 2 or 3 thoughts from your perspective of having this big pink eye from the UK who works at SARS, who has managed large organizations, then there he is, he's showing up at your school in Asheville. And then Bob, get ready, because we are going to ask you to tell the famous Previn Gordon story. Jane.
Hi, I think at first I never thought it will happen, because immediately you get a name, the first thing you do is to Google a profile of a person. So I looked at Bob's profile, I saw the scenario, and I thought PFP must be joking. This partnership is not going to happen. And he showed up, and when he showed up, I saw a lot of humility, and Bob was just different from what I read. And I've grown so much in this partnership. Bob was just a soundboard to me. The other thing is that both of us, we could learn to listen, because we can talk, Bob and I. And how he's been treating everybody here at the school, it extended to the community of Atteridgeville, to parents, to community of Atteridgeville. Bob was known by everybody else in Atteridgeville, because it started by being Mr. Bobhead. Then it came to Sir Bob. The next thing, everybody, when Bob comes to the community, they say, Bob, Bob, Bob. So he is Bob. That shows you how passionate he is with education. And since then, I'm not the same, Louise. The respect that I have for my community, the respect that I have in the education system. I will tell you a story to say, every time when an MEC or the minister has to visit the school, my director will say, I don't sleep until the minister is there. But with me, they risk to invite people to come here at 7 o'clock. For example, the MEC was here early in January. He came at 7 o'clock and nobody was worried, because they knew they will find the school intact. That's Jane and Bob for you.
Thank you, Jane. And I was just wondering whether if you want to say something about your reflections on interviewing Jane and visiting the school. But Bob, we have made being able to decide or to have control over your own diary is a key requirement now for us. We say if business leaders want to join PFB, they must have control over their own diary. And then we tell the famous Previn Gordon story, because we say we want business leaders to respond in the way that you responded to that phone call, because that made a massive difference to Jane. Knowing that she is more important than Previn Gordon has changed Jane's identity on the planet. But we want to hear the story from you, and we are recording, so we never know where this story might end up, Bob, so careful now.
I think actually Previn Gordon is familiar with the story, actually, Jane, because he indicated he's not a gentleman. I have scars. So what happened was I arrived at the school. I literally got one foot out the car and the other foot was still in the car, so I was sort of rotating in my seat, and my phone went, and it was Previn Gordon's office, and the person at the other end of the line says, he wants to see you, and he wants to see you now. So I said, well, I'm out of town at the moment, but I'll probably get to you in about a couple of hours. Now, for those of you who don't know where Salisville is about a half-hour drive to get to Previn Gordon's office. Anyway, so I jumped out the car and went to see Jane and said, we've only got an hour. I've just told Previn Gordon that I'm out of town having an important business meeting, and you are more important than Previn Gordon, so you can wait. And that was basically it.
So, Jane, how did it feel to know that you were more important than Previn Gordon? Unmute, unmute, unmute.
Oh, yeah, it's the first thing that I said to everyone. When Bob left, I said, guess what? He chose me over Previn Gordon. And they actually said, the Previn Gordon we know. I said, yes, the only one. And that has been the story that we told parents, visitors, and everybody else to say, hey, careful, the principal here is respected by the office of Previn Gordon. I think it did help a lot to say, of course, yes, you can respect a principal, especially in these days and age.
Thank you, Jane. I'm going to tell one more story about Jane, and then we're going to hand over to Thomas Holt. So the story I have about Jane is the first time Jane and Bob came to do Flawless Consulting, I think it was something like February 2013 or something, a long time ago. Jane was really struggling to find her way from Atteridgeville to Midrand for this course. And I remember Francois being on the call with you, Jane, and spending all this time to kind of help you to find your way. And at the time, this was one of the very few times that Jane had been outside of Atteridgeville driving somewhere else. At that time, Jane hadn't traveled anywhere. Jane had spent her life in Atteridgeville. Jane, actually, I'm going to ask you, since that day, where have you been as kind of big highlight places that you've visited? Some have been to do with Bob, some have been completely outside of Bob, but as a result of all of this exposure. Tell us about, just give us the background to your story of traveling.
I've been to more of Europe countries now than African countries. And it's all because of the partnership. I've been to France, I've been to Denmark, I've been to the heart of London by myself, Bob not being there. You know, I stayed in his flat while he was in South Africa and I was there. I've been to Germany, I've done partner, I've been to Lancaster, I've visited people, I've used tube trains. I went to the Pancras station, I've seen Charles de Gaulle, the best station that you can ever mention. And I also had other partnerships because they heard of Bob. I've met lots of people because they followed him. So what he did for me, again, I must say this one, was that every time he was supposed to have a meeting with a key person who would invite them, I would be the host. And of course, I would meet those people. So I became an automatic globetrotter, you know, and sometimes some places, I mean, for a Jane from Atteridgeville, from other places, then you have to fly alone, go to places, and Bob had a map for me and notes to say, if you want coffee, go to Starbucks 3 kilometers from the flat. And the next thing, I had to go to see other people in France. I happened to meet my friend in France, all because of Bob. And my friend felt it's unfair for her family. She has been there for 10 years. Nobody came to visit. I was the first South African to visit her. So it's all good, and I hope I'm still gonna do it.
There's one other thing to add. Previn Gordon actually did perform for Jane. So I took Jane to the budget speech. So Previn Gordon was up on the stage, and Jane was one of the noted respectable people in the audience.
Thank you, Bob. So Jane went as Bob +1. So we're going to come back to Bob and Jane later. We're now going to go to Thomas and Lizzie. So I have just a few words to say about Thomas. So we met Thomas when he was when he attended a community building workshop with Peter Block in 2010. And as a result of that community building workshop, when we sent out the invitations for Partners of Possibility, Thomas said yes. And I keep hearing stories about how this experience has been transformational for Thomas. Now, one of the people who will be listening to this next little clip when I send it to him is Peter Block, because the other day I said to Peter, Thomas, that this program has had a transformational impact on you, and asked whether he remembered you. He couldn't exactly place you, so he's very keen to hear your story. So Thomas and Lizzie's story is also captured in chapter 3 of the book. And over to Thomas, and then let's hear from Lizzie, because she's more important than Thomas. So Lizzie, just a quick hello from you, and you from Rembrandt Park Primary in the west of what's that side of Joburg, the east of Joburg. Do you just want to say hello, Lizzie, so that everybody knows who you are?
Hi, Louise, and hi, everybody. I am Lizzie from Rembrandt Park Primary. I'm the school principal there. Thank you.
Thank you, Lizzie. And Theo and I had a wonderful visit to Lizzie's school just a few months ago now. But Thomas, over to you.
Yeah, okay, so from the echelons of government and Province Gordon, we're just normal people here, and we got into the trenches pretty quickly. And I think the key for me to this partnership was the relationship that was forged. And I think the backbone of this entire program is really about stepping across the bridge. I mean, currently the context is amazing, in the sense of, yes, we're on a crisis. Yes, Corona has created all sorts of anomalies, as was mentioned earlier, but it also has created all sorts of transformations and highlighted some amazing and some obviously scary aspects of our society. But definitely this whole question, we've heard it now in a number of these conversations around power, you know, power with, power over. I just think it's absolutely wonderful for me, and I'm sorry, I have to be totally controversial here, but you know, Trump looks like a doist, right? He's just an absolute representation of patriarchal power, and it's been shown up as in the world that we live in as something that has, you know, it's a has-been, it's a history lesson, and the world we're moving into. And you know, we did this partnership, Lizzie and I, almost 10 years ago, the second program in Johannesburg. And this whole introduction to Peter Block's community building was around showing up and listening and going into partnership. The whole the wording around, we don't want colonialists here. We don't want to give advice. We want to give support. We want to listen, and we want to play a role as what needs to be done. Show up, listen, and listen to what needs to be done. Every one of us in this session, and every, you know, it was mentioned earlier, there isn't such a thing as some charismatic leader that's going to fix everything for us. Lizzie, you know, an amazing leader, and a lot of that sort of just latent, in a sense, with this society that we're in, that labels gender and labels race and labels whatever, you know, otherness you want to define, when we all have this ability to do the most amazing things. And Lizzie, in terms of our relationship, she really was doing a great job at the school, but it didn't take much encouragement for her to do a whole lot more. And you know, it was a nudge here and a nudge there, and I can't say that I did that much in terms of the contribution, but she was amazing in terms of how she just took things up. You know, our community building day, our Mandela Day was an incredible success. It's still, almost 10 years later, a part of the DNA of that school. The community involvement is phenomenal, and she's just doing it. Her and her team are just doing a fantastic job, and I just live in awe of her. You know, where she comes from, what challenges she has overcome. You know, I've become very aware of my white male face and what that means when I show up in a room, and sometimes it's best for me just to keep quiet, because it's, you know, the privilege is there all over, and my contribution may not always be the contribution of saying or doing something, but maybe just listening and being around. So yeah, you know, I remember Louise very well, the session with Peter Block. I think it was his last session, and you did the first day and he did the second day. I think there was quite what do you call it? You had to step in for Peter, so you did an amazing job on that first day. But when Peter heard that I was one of the few CEOs in the room, he felt sorry for me, and I know why. And in getting to know Lizzie, I also learned that, you know, principal's job is quite a lonely job. You don't often know where to turn to, because pretty much anybody or everybody wants something from you. So how do you manage in that space, and how do you manage effectively? Because guess what? We're also just humans, and we also sometimes just don't know, and people expect us to know. So it's been also that journey of just getting to know somebody, and I think I can leave it to Lizzie to talk about what she's achieved at the school, and she did it with very little help from my side. But in the process, we've become friends, and I'm just in awe and admire what she's achieved. And by the way, I just need to add that because I think PFP being sold as a CSI program that assists and gets people like myself into environments where education is struggling. But guess what? The flip side is that the progress and the leadership lessons are absolutely incredible for anybody, and that applies to a business leader as much as it applies to a principal. So you know, my organization is a change organization as a result of it, and I, you know, I'm feel quite privileged that quite a few of my colleagues joined us. Our marketing manager decided no, she's put it out to all our staff, so there's quite a few of them listening, and I think we've done an amazing job going through COVID. Because we have a whole lot of partners in the business, as opposed to, you know, a few sort of charismatic leadership, charismatic driven patriarchs in the organization, and everybody else is waiting for instructions. So very, very pleased at the benefits that our organization has gleaned out of the learning that I've gone through.
Thomas, I want to come back to you about that. I'm going to go to Lizzie. Just want a quick response or quick reflection. I remember when Peter was here, we had those pictures that we created with the key outcomes of that workshop. And one of the things that he said to us at the time, and I'm sure you remember it, is he says that community changes the context in which action takes place. And I am 100% sure that our organization, Symphony of South Africa, would not have survived during this COVID period if it wasn't that we had such a strong community, that there wasn't just you know, one charismatic leader and everybody waiting for the, as you say, the patriarch to give instructions. That it was very much 70 citizens who stepped up and did what they could in their area. Because they cared about the community, and there was such a sense of abundance and citizenship and, you know, commitment and action, which is everything that we've been teaching for 10 years. And then when the difficulty came, we saw that in action. I don't know whether that was your experience at Multitech.
Absolutely. No, somebody shared a picture with me the other day, and, you know, imagine power being transmitted through an internet line, right? You can only do it in tension. You cannot do it in compression, because that line will just crumble. And power is not transmitted through authority, it's transmitted through behavior, through example, through influence. Simple picture for me.
Fantastic, thank you. So Lizzie told Theo and I a story. She said the first day when she and Thomas were in, I think this was Stephanie Dawson-Kossa was the learning process facilitator, and they had to choose their partners. And Thomas was this big, imposing Afrikaans, well, not Afrikaans, but German man. And Lizzie's she was a bit shy at the time. And so by the time they kind of finally got themselves organized, everybody else already had their partners. And so Lizzie and Thomas being partnered it was just luck, Lizzie, wasn't it? Nobody designed it. It just happened. So do you want to share something about your experience of having Thomas as your friend? And it's been a long friendship now, more than 6 years.
It has been now, it started in 2012 when we were at my school where we started. It was the second cycle of this program. And me and Thomas were the only one left after everyone has chosen their partners. So it was like an obvious case that Lizzie is Thomas' partner because we were the only two left. But finding out that I am now a partner with a chief executive officer of a very successful a company, the company in Captain Park, not far away from my school. I was I really appreciated it, and I took a pride on it to say I am part of, and I am in Thomas' life. I have learned a lot from Thomas. Thomas will tell you I was really very shy when we started with this program, much as I was not able to even approach anyone in that room. I was even shy to go to choose my partner. So when we were meeting, going to different workshops that were organized by Louise and meeting there, I will most of the time just not talk. Thomas will do too much of talking but interrogating and wanting me to talk, but I ended up talking. There was this one program that we attended, the one workshop. It was the time to think. And I was always just listening and thinking that, is it me with this guy? Is it me with this chief executive officer? But I have learned a lot from Thomas. Firstly, we had a program where our learners, the learners from Rembrandt Park, will visit Thomas' company when we have career week, where learners will choose their careers, but we organize that they are going to go to Thomas' company where they will learn different careers. They will go to different offices, the grade 7s of Rembrandt Park. And we have been doing that. It was only last year where we did not do it. I don't remember exactly what was the challenge why we didn't do it, but since 2012, we have been visiting Thomas' company with my grade 7 learners. I was also forming part of that. I'll make sure that I go with them and I'll visit different offices with my learners and with the grade 7 teachers. Thomas will take care of everything, will cater, give food to the kids, the transport, they will pay for us, for us to be there. And when we started, every week we will submit reports, fortnightly. It was between me and Thomas who will choose where to meet so that we can agree of what we are going to submit to the program organizers. We were alternating. I'll go to Maltotech, and sometimes the following week, Thomas will come to me and we'll form that. We'll complete the report and submit it. But it was sort of an individual report, which we agreed that it's going to be like this. But for me to go to Thomas' office, I've learned so many things. I've learned that, I can move my school from where it was to be operating like a business. Why are schools operating like this? I ask myself those questions. Hence, you'll come to my school now, you'll find that this is a very clean environment, it's a welcoming environment. You go to the foyer, you'll find a tea, all the machines of teas and so on. And another thing with Thomas, we agreed that we are going to make sure that we change the academic results where they were to somewhere. We wanted to move them from 60 to somewhere. And we came up with programs. What is it that we can change to change all these results? We started with looking at the teachers and bringing in programs that will develop the teachers development programs. We also looked at the community where we were. Are these community members involved in whatever we are doing at school? And we also look at the learners. Are these learners really wanting to be here? And we said we need to organize things that will bring them together. And that was when we agreed that we're gonna have Madiba Day that same particular year. It was 2012. And we called all the community members. You can't believe the response that we received from the community members. And from there, we could see that we can bring everyone in. And we moved our results from 60, more especially literacy and numeracy, maths and English, from 60 to 90. That's how we performed. And we're still keeping it like that even now. And after that, I said to myself, but we cannot limit ourselves to this. We did not have any musical instrument at Rembrandt Park Primary School. And I sold that idea to Thomas that I want my school to have music instruments. And that's when now there was this celebration in Cape Town. And I was invited. I went to Cape Town, Steenkamp High School. It's something like that. I went there. It was in the evening. I came back. I said, Thomas, this is what I have seen. This is what I have learned. And I want my school to have musical instruments. You know, that same year, not long ago, 2 years ago, we bought all sort of musical instrument. As I am talking to you now, my school has got an orchestra, a choir, and we are the first school in our district office to have that. And as when we have visitors, you know, learners will play all those instruments. We have trumpets, we have everything that you may name it. And it's not only that, you know, as Thomas has already highlighted that we are friends, which I'm going to dispute that. Thomas, you are not my friend. You are part of my family. It's like we have also even introduced our families to one another, to each other. My husband knows that there is Thomas in my life. My Thomas family knows that there is Lizzie in Thomas' life. So it doesn't only end at school. It is beyond that. And I just want to say to Louise and Stephanie, who introduced me to this program, not really Stephanie, but there was a parent at my kids' school who introduced me to the program, that I really thank you so much, because I have moved my school from good to great. Where I am now, my school is operating in a very high level. We are effective. And I mean, I'm managing effective teams. And I am just very blessed to be part of this program. Though now we are not really like serious as before, not being controlled, but we still meet with Thomas. We still continue, we still like sharing ideas. If I have some challenges at my school, I really know that I'll pick up the phone call and phone Thomas, and Thomas will be able to advise and listen to me. And that's all what I wanted to share with you. Not really all, but the little bit of it that I.
Thank you so much to Lizzie. Thank you so much, Lizzie. We're going to just pause for a moment because we still want to hear from Jill and Peter, but we've now heard from 4 phenomenal people. We've heard from Bob and Jane, and then we've heard from Thomas and Lizzie. So I'm going to ask you, in the spirit of adult learning and making the most of this opportunity, to just for a moment think to yourself, or just, we actually want you to write in the chat, what struck you about the stories you've just heard? So just so that we don't lose those magic moments, and also just because it'd be useful for us to have that input. What struck you? And then if you've got any questions, and if you are willing to just put in the chat who your question is directed to. So Kamala saying, thank you, Lizzie, for a beautiful story. But Anybody else want to just say what struck you about what you've just heard from those 4 people in the chat? As it's a way of sharing in a spirit of generosity with other people what your thoughts are. And then if you have any questions, but if you can be specific around who your question is directed to. Before we go to Jill and Peter. So we're just going to create a minute or so for people to just capture what struck you about what you've heard. Thank you, everybody. So just for those who've asked, we will send you the details about how to order the book. The book there's about 40 stories, of which these 2 stories you've heard are 2 of the 40. You're going to hear about 2 more now. And Lizzie's stories about her orchestra is in the book. Let's go now then to Peter Venn. So Peter Venn is a managing director of a renewable energies company. He is a very well-regarded business leader in the southern suburbs of Cape Town. He mentioned earlier that his children are at Bishop's and therefore he's a parent of Bishop, which means we've got access to an amazing group of people because of Peter. So let's hear from Peter. Peter, unfortunately, Andre, who was Peter's partner, cannot be with us today. So we have Peter on his own. It is Women's Month, so therefore we definitely needed to listen to the female principals. We couldn't let the men get away with being the heroes without acknowledging the role the women played. But Peter's going to be on his own. Andre, unfortunately, is not, as far as I know, Andre's not with us. So Peter, over to you.
Thanks, Louise. Could you just see if you could let me share my screen just briefly?
Absolutely. I'm going to make you co-host, Peter, which means that you will then be able to share the screen. So let me just do this quickly.
Look, it's hard to follow people in this program because they take all your good material. So there's absolutely nothing that anybody said that doesn't resonate with my experience. I think, I was partnered with Andre in Lavender Hill, Nirvana Primary, and it's difficult to go there. I mean, I would hazard a guess 1 in 5 times that I was scheduled to go there, Andre would phone and say, please do not attend. It is not safe for you to come. I think the scary part of that is it's less than 5 kilometers from my office. So, you probably 50% of the time I was there were gunshots going off. Andre, the one day, phoned me quite a wreck. He was quite a wreck. He had let the kids out, and they're right on one of the bigger roads in Lavender Hill, and gangsters started shooting in the road, and Andre was in the road dragging the children back into the school. This was a school that didn't have a fence. So, I think I agree with everything that everybody said. And again, I've taken a lot more out of this program, which is a little selfish than I've given in, but it's just the nature of the program. I went to Rondebosch Boys High School. It was a Model C government school, but comparatively to a Levana or a Hillwood or many of the other schools, you know, you can't even put them on the same rating scale. It's very difficult to have a school with 5 science laboratories being on the same scale as Levana. That's a temporary school built in 1976. And it's still a temporary school to this day. It is still a prefab school from 1976. So I'm going to try and share my screen one more time. Otherwise, I'll...
You should be able to share it now, Peter.
Yeah. So look, and really, you know, Louise knows this very well from me, that I didn't want to get involved in anything that I didn't leverage my best skills. And my day-to-day job is raising funding for a renewable energy plant. So a small renewable energy plant costs somewhere between 2 and 3 billion rand. And that's my job, to travel the world and raise funding, Japan, Norway, South Africa, obviously the UK, to raise funding. And it's not about money, and it's not about my money. I've personally put in very little, but it was leveraging. Everybody wants to assist. And I mean, maybe you can see, before I got involved with Andre, and Andre's the catalyst, you can see the difference, I think, I hope. Some of the programs that we laid out, a school hall was built, no hall since 1976. The building in the top left corner was the first library in Lavender Hill. The first library in Lavender Hill. Just think about that. There on the right-hand side, you can see some temporary classrooms. And down at the bottom, you can see a rugby field. But more interestingly, one of the 2 girls in the middle has been facilitated and has received the Accenture bursary for all studies ever, including accommodation, until PhD level. And we can all talk about those great teachers in our lives. I mean, if you listen to any of the stories about people like Herschel Yankees and Sia Khaleesi, there's always a great teacher somewhere along that line. And I believe all the principles that PFP is engaged with are and can be that great teacher to individuals and make the big difference. And often they don't even know it themselves. So I just wanted to share that picture, because I think it's just a great representation what great people like Andre, in my case, can do, but often struggle because they don't have the network. So my network is very much a white privileged network. Went to Rondebosch, have many friends at Bishops. My boys were at Bishops. My father-in-law is a lifetime vice president of the Bishops OD Union, was marketer of the year in 1989 for South Africa, ran a successful publishing business. But my network was a very white privileged network. I now have a very diverse and dynamic network. When COVID came along, I was able to fundraise and distribute 300,000 Rand in the first week to people that couldn't feed underprivileged children. That wouldn't have happened without Partners for Possibility. And that wasn't directly through Partners for Possibility. It wasn't through Levana, but various headmasters, headmistresses, and various NGOs that we've been involved with through this program. We were able to facilitate that network and with our funders and get food on the ground for people. I mean, it is sad when you can't help. My phone beeps probably once or twice a day with requests for assistance. But most of my white privilege network are clueless on how to help. And, you know, Louise has heard this many times, but one of the sad things is the biggest negative is people don't want to cross the M5 highway and travel into a township. And, you know, the safety and the security aspects are played. But when my boys are young, 8 and 7, it's my 4th year as a parent at Bishops. When my boys walk around Bishops, it is a school that lacks love. And when I say that, there's no physical contact, and please, let's talk about pre-COVID. there's no love between the teachers, the principal, and the children. At Levana, you cannot walk 10 meters without 10 children coming to hug you, and they get that joy, love, safety out of the school. When I pull up in my car is my bicycle is probably worth more than my car, a 14-year-old Land Rover Freelander. The boys crowd around my car and we talk about cars, you know, and that's just aspirational stuff to young, impressionable people. And Andre, as a headmaster, broke that barrier. He's formed numerous full bursary programs with other schools where people are now leaving Lavender Hill. And I'm talking 5 kilometers, I'm talking 10 kilometers, I'm not talking hundreds, where there's just a much broader acceptance that Lavender Hill is not the be all and end all of what one can be if you do that. And, you know, we've got a sad story in our office. Another partner for Possibility individual, Ian Mcdonald. Ian was a partner to the school next door to Levana, both of them primary schools, both of them 1,000 children. Ian passed away 2.5 years ago now while working. But it's just been amazing. There must be at least 50 people that are actively supporting Hillwood on a weekly basis, the bursary programs that have been put in place. So it is about networks for me. Again, I just want to reiterate, I've got far more out of this, and there's not enough money, Bob, from a tax point of view. There's not enough money that you could pay me to be headmaster of Levana. You start with 20 million in my bank account and I would consider going for the interview. I think these people are crazy that are headmasters of these underprivileged schools. They're crazy. And maybe they just do it because they don't know what they're getting into. But when you're dealing with gangsters running through the school, everybody is out to get you. And they don't share with their spouses if they're lucky enough to be married, because their spouses will stop them working at these schools. I mean, you walk into Andre's office and he's got a child of 9, 8 that's intoxicated. You know, there's gangsters in the school. Children are full members of the gangs that tell Andre what to do. You know, and remember, this is a primary school. So we're talking about 12-year-olds, 10-year-olds. So it's a crazy environment, but I do think we've been able to assist. And I think Lavender Hill's been better for it. And I'm a much better person for it. I, for my sins, put up my hand to be on the Bishops' Parents Association, which first meeting's tomorrow, but my number one thing is transformation. Bishops has no clue about transformation, and I am making it my mission. And if it doesn't improve, I will take my boys out of the school and find another home for them.
We can certainly find places for them to be useful and of use and in learning, Peter. Thank you so much. I'm going to ask everybody if you do have, if you're willing to just share what struck you about Peter's story, and if you have any questions for Peter, to capture that so that when we have a bit of time at the end, we'll come back to you. I just want to, there's so many of our business leaders who say, now that I know what the principals are going through, I realize I will never be able to do the job. Rather give me the job to be MD of Multitech, of WindLab, or CEO of Multitech, because it's much, much easier than being a principal of an under-resourced school. So we're now going to listen to Jillian Cox. Now, so this is Women's Month, so we've left the best for last. But before we introduce Jillian, I just want to acknowledge that Jillian's been a partner 3 times, which is not quite how the program's designed, but she's such a phenomenal partner to the principals that we don't want anybody to miss out on that. And one of her partners was an amazing woman called Busy Magwaza. She was the principal of Mswati Primary, and we wrote we wrote Jillian and Busy's story and captured it in chapter 6. And without any doubt, apart from the Ian Mcdonald chapter, which is chapter 7, that story of Mswati Primary was definitely one of my most amazing stories. And recently, very sadly, Busy passed away as a result of COVID complications. So we're going to just take a 1 minute of silence to just remember and acknowledge the amazing role that Busy Mgwazi played in all of our lives. And then I'm going to ask Jill to share her story. But just first, 1 minute of silence. Thank you, everybody. Jillian, you've been a PFP 3 times, and in the book, we have 2 of your stories. We have the story of your relationship, your partnership with Busy, and then we've also got the story of your partnership with Robbie Paramel. So do you want to share with us just a little bit about your experience of being part of this journey and this program?
Hi, Louise, and hello to everyone there, and a huge thank you for honoring Busy. It means a lot to us. So I'll try and not reflect on that too much. My journey with PFP started in 2016 with Busy Mgwazi. She was the principal of a very, very rural school. Unlike any of the other partnerships that I've heard of today, 290 learners and a small team of staff. When I first went and drove up to the school, I simply couldn't find it because there are no road signs. Eventually, I was driving around half an hour later and I found 3 workers in a cane field, and I asked them for directions, and they said, well, if you give me a lift, I'll show you where it is. So they hopped into my car and off we went, and eventually found the school. Once there, the challenges were immense. She had quite a demotivated staff, all sticking to their designated roles, children attending schools when they felt like it, especially the junior primary. There was no functioning kitchen, no library. The pit latrines were disgusting, shortage of fresh food. Well, my heart sank. How could I make a difference? And I think with Busy's big expressive eyes, and she had boundless optimism, we started tackling the problems. We decided to start with the easy ones first. And I was amazed at the change in the whole school. Teachers with shiny eyes, busy, noisy classrooms, full of laughter and song. By making small changes, there was suddenly hope in the community. And to me, that was the most incredible thing. The change I saw in Busy was marked. After the flawless consulting course, she turned to me and she said, Jill, I'm going to change. I just listened to her telling me how she had been quite dictatorial in her relationship with her team. The shift to collaboration made her job so much easier as she was no longer making all the decisions. Her staff felt more involved and responsible. I think most principals in under-resourced schools have this approach. Standing in front of staff meetings, telling everyone what they have to do. And to me, that fosters a very childlike behavior in the staff. They try and see what they can get away with. They have a lack of commitment. So it was a huge eye-opener from my perspective. And I asked the question, so what was in it for me? So obviously there's a huge feel-good. You're tackling the immense problems of education. I'm a great believer in tackling the problem at grassroots level. I'm also incredibly angry at the inequalities that are carrying on and on. I just ask myself, when will this all end? How much longer must we all just try harder without any change? So that was my first thing. And then the second thing was the whole approach of PFP to a model of change. The model of change changed not only Busy. I changed too. I've become, someone else said, I think Thomas, a much better listener. a thinking partner. I learned how to have circle discussions where every voice is heard. So I've moved out of simply managing staff in our workplace. We run a small engineering business in Joburg. From just checking they were following standard operating procedures and processing their work accurately, to actually learning to lead my team properly. I've helped my staff change their behavior to proper adult-to-adult relationship. I've moved them out of their safety net, where all the problems, they used to just, any big problem, they used to just send it to me. So now they're actually growing and they are able to fix it themselves. I think that happens in a lot of businesses where a lot of employees have come through the education system in South Africa, that people just think, can't do it, let the boss do it. So there were lots and lots of stories about Busy. I think she features 4 or 5 times in the book, and I'm not really going to share those unless we have time. When Terry asked me to partner a second school, I felt quite confident. I thought it would be a piece of cake. Well, firstly, the principal, Dr. Ravi Perumal, was from a very different background. He was of Indian descent. He was male, and previously I dealt with a woman principal and women teachers. He had a much bigger staff complement, and he had 1,000 learners. Luckily, he was also passionate about making a difference. So the first staff meeting I attended, I said to him, I'm not going to sit at the front with you, because often headmasters want you to take on the headmaster. I said, I'm going to sit with your team. So I walked in the room, and there are all these rows of desks. We all sat in our rows. The teachers said nothing, and Dr. Perumal spoke for an hour. So I phoned Terry up, I said, urgent, urgent. And we had a triad meeting. And that all changed. He is now a completely collaborative leader. The learners and educators are all more involved. They're motivated. They show a strong willingness to collaborate. Dr. Perumal's determination to delegate more initiatives to the SMT and SGB is helping them feel empowered and trusted. So rather than resisting change, the stakeholders and community members are enthusiastic. They embrace change in a very positive way. So I loved every minute of my involvement in Parkgate. I've met incredible people. They're willing to do much more than they're asked. And so a result of this is they attract like-minded people from foundations that are willing to support the school. I looked at what Peter Venn has done, and likewise, we have had a foundation who pledged 600,000 Rand for a new assembly cover for the school. And it's just because there's such energy in the school. So my role's changed at Parkgate. I'm able to sit back and watch, often with amazement. The multitasking that's happening is, multitasking that's happening is amazing. The sheer number of projects on the go is incredible. I mean, Louise has been there and seen the energy of the staff and how they take over, and principal and I just sit back, and the tables are laid and the rooms are organized and the videos are done and everything sparkles and there's tea and coffee, and it's just quite amazing. And so then Terry asked me to partner a third school. So Terry and I actually both mountain bike, and we're cycling along, and she says, you know, won't you come and join the next circle? And I said, no, well, Terry, I'm sure you've got more people who want to benefit from the program, and I've learned so much, and there must be other business leaders, you know, she's got a huge network at Simbiti. And anyway, eventually I ended up joining and partnering Redcliffe Primary. And what I have learned from my third time round is that there is no formula. There's no pattern and there's no recipe. We actually get results differently every single time. So I want to say to people that are watching here who are thinking of becoming business partners, don't be intimidated and don't be put off. We've just had a Zoom meeting yesterday with a whole lot of our leaders in our circle, and they're saying, but we will never be able to produce the end of the year video clips. We just can't do that. And it's all because of COVID and all that. And then I actually said, but it's completely different. We get different results differently every time. So it's like seeing a beautiful house. If there's no love and care, just like Peter said in his school, if there's no love and care inside the house, it's actually not so beautiful. And it's the warmth of relationships that change everything. And that's where the learning happens. To treat each principal differently with respect, with open heart, open mind, and open will. And from a personal perspective, my third time round, I keep saying to Terry, I just can't believe it. I'm still learning. I didn't do that last time. Why is it different? And it's just different personalities, different challenges. So I think finally, I just want to say that I believe change in our beloved country can happen right here in our schools. Let's just see how far we can push out the boundaries that hold back our youth. We have got incredible people in our country. They're often people from Europe that are offering to come in, and the SES Foundation, you want to send in delegates for a month and fix a school and then leave. And Louise asked me why I've never embraced them. And I've said, because Louise, I really think we can do it here. We've got so many incredibly talented people, and there's such community and collaboration. So let's give our children the best opportunities that are possible within the walls of their schools. And I'd like to say, let's rise above negative thoughts and behavior, and let's believe in our children. And I suppose that's why I've done the third time round.
Thank you so much, Jillian. So we've come to the end, and we've not had a chance to have a kind of large group conversation, partly because we've just had such beautiful contributions. So we're going to ask you if you've got any thoughts, comments, responses to what you've heard. You are helping us to kind of craft our story and the next part of our journey. So please share your thoughts in the chat. I've asked, just while we were on the call, I asked Theo Garin, who had the privilege to write all these 4 stories, to share just his reflections. And Theo, you've only got 2 minutes. And then after Theo's spoken, I am going to ask maybe just 1 or 2 people in the community to help us thank our 4 panelists. But a few words from Theo, and then could you sit ready and maybe put your hand up if you're willing to say, to help us just acknowledge and appreciate our panelists. Theo, over to you.
Thanks, Louise. I think the problem with Zoom is you're seeing talking heads. You and I went to those schools. It's been fantastic seeing these people again and getting those memories flooding back. We walked around those schools, we went into those classrooms, we saw the children, we spoke to the teachers, and we got a feeling for what was actually going on there. And that's the thing that really struck me. I mean, my background way back was in education, and I know that children learn when they are busy and when they're doing things and when they're being stimulated. And that's the impression I got in those schools. So you take, I think Motswati Memorial was probably the best example of that. As Jill pointed out, it's really in the middle of nowhere. And yet we went there and there was just so much going on. Those kids had so much to do and so much to choose and so much stimulation. And the same applied to the 2 schools in Lavender Hill that we went to. In the midst of all that terrible gangsterism and violence and fear, those kids were busy. There were clubs and societies. I mean, Hillview Primary School had, if I'm not mistaken, 25 extramural activities on offer to those kids. The problem I found with the vast majority of dysfunctional, poorly performing schools in the country is there's not enough going on for the kids to do. And the principals know what needs to be done. They know what's possible. And the business leaders have come into those schools and they've helped them. And between them, they've managed to lay all of that on for those kids. And that's the thing that really made the impression for me. And if, it's all about the art of possibility, as you know. And if it's possible in those places, and we went, as you know, to some really dire places. And if those things are possible in those places, then it's possible everywhere. And programs like yours is what's making it happen.
Thank you, Theo. And Theo was a school principal himself, so he speaks from experience. So anybody want to maybe just a few thoughts, just what struck you? Anybody who's been inspired by what you heard, just show your hand, and we're just going to create maybe 3 or 4 people to say something around what you've been inspired by this morning. Deadly silence. We can't have deadly silence. Thank you, Kamala. I was hoping you would say something.
Yeah, Louise, I just want to thank the panelists and also the principals. Such beautiful stories and truly inspiring. And yeah, I only hope that you've inspired a few people today to come join our movement and contribute to this change. I myself have been a partner, so and what you said resonates completely with me. But yeah, thank you. Thank you for making the time and for sharing those stories. And thank you for making the time for the schools and for the learners. I think that's the big thing. So thank you.
So for those of you all, I mentioned Kamala Pillay earlier. Kamala is the new PFP program director. We are very happy to have her on board. Christine, I see you've put your hand up. Just unmute yourself and tell us what you were inspired by today.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm so much perturbed and very much happy with regard the topic of I've had today with the panelists and the principals that are involved, all the speakers. Now I've joined the PFP. I'm in the program currently. Now it tells me now to say an individual needs to be active, to play, to have a role that you need to play, whereby you're going to build a better democratic society and develop the leadership and management skills to all the principals, to all the partners, so as we interact, to collaborate together, so as we are able to adjust and adapt and accept the implementation of the partners with possibility. So everything is possible, nothing is difficult, as long as you believe and you commit and you dedicate yourself. Phambili siyaya phambili. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you so much. I do just want to tell you, I have to do a plug for the book. My mum, who's on the call, read the book, and she would phone every day and say, oh, I've so enjoyed, chapter 5, and this is what I took away, and then chapter 6 and chapter 7. So please, if you are able to order a copy of the book, it's 340 Rand. We then arrange delivery to where you are working from all over the country. And it's a book full of stories of hope and possibility that will inspire you. We heard from 6 of the people featured in the book, and there are going to be many more opportunities to hear from people. Let's hear from, I do want to give one last opportunity for our panelists to just say one last word, but let's start with Thomas, then we'll go to Bob, and then Peter and Jillian. Here's Thomas.
Yeah, I think I just wanted, what resonated earlier is when Jillian was saying every single partnership that I've witnessed, and we had a number of my colleagues go through it, every one of them has a unique and absolute beautiful story. And I think the last thing one needs to be is intimidated that you won't be able to do this, you're not going to be able to build a school hall, or you can't do a video or whatever. It's not about that. It's just about showing up, building a relationship, and then seeing what needs to be done. It's as simple as that. And that's the starting point of anything, right? It takes 2 or 4 people to change the world. Don't even think of it as a challenge that, we can't do what Bob Head did or what Jillian did or whatever. I don't believe that in a second that we can all do something. And I think it's a lot easier than you think. You just have to get into the program.
Thank you, Thomas. Bob, your last thoughts?
So life has always been very nice to me, and I did this wretched program because of you, and it was to put something back, and the more you give, the more you get. So I'm even further in debt than what I actually was before, and it's just been fabulous. So I'd just like to say thank you to Louise, and thank you to Jane, and all of our people in our school. It's been fabulous.
Thank you, Bob. Peter.
Yeah, I'm scared about what I'm going to say now, but Louise signed me up for another round, I guess, that Andre's moved off into the government. But yeah, I do want to just say something that I think many of the people in the education department, not the headmasters, many of them actually want to do good but have no idea. And I think once these headmasters get those ideas in their head, actually the education department comes to the party. And we definitely saw that in Lavender Hill. But Louise, thank you for everything that you've done. And yeah, what a great program.
Thank you so much, Peter. And then last but not least, Jillian, over to you.
So I echo what everyone else said. Thank you, Louise, for facilitating this and for just nation building. What I also want to just mention, and no one else has really touched on, is the incredible ripple effect. So you're dealing with a principal and then spreads to the teachers and the kids and the community, and it ripples on. And then it's the same with the business partners and the support you get from those people. So I reckon with my 3 schools, I rope in people all over the place and they all are doing so much. So it is hugely community build and building our country. So thank you, Louise.
Thank you very much, Jillian. Thank you very much for everybody who were able to join us today. I am going to ask my colleagues of the PFP team if you would just stay on for a few minutes at the end when everybody leaves. We will be capturing the chat and we will send you the information about how to get a hold of the book. So good, have a wonderful day for the rest of your day, and thank you so much for joining us. And if anybody wants to share their last thoughts on the chat, please do so. We'd love to hear you.
Bye, guys.
Okay, so I think we're almost just us. I just wanted to hear from our colleagues. I'll just quickly remove some of the other people, but any thoughts or reflections from this session? We're going to do more, but I just want to get your kind of top of mind responses to what you've just heard or the session. Any suggestions for doing it differently or better next time?
I'm extremely grateful. I tapped into Peter being one of the panelists, and there was representation from the IPPs in the Northern Cape. So I'm very, very grateful for that. This is an extremely valuable selling tool. Yeah, so the next one is the focus on the 18th. Thank you for the effort. Thank you, Louise. And I wouldn't change anything. I think this is brilliant.
Thank you, Kuba. Anybody else? Any other thoughts?
Yeah, Louise, I would really love to let my circle that we started yesterday at one stage go through the same meeting or same thing that we did go through it now. I think now it's a little bit too early for them, but this is it's so beautiful, and I can just hear them. I can just see the enthusiasm they're going to have when they hear this. So I think now they only received their book, so it's brand new for them. So yeah, this would be a nice session to share with them at a later stage, definitely.
Yeah, I think we need to do many more. Once we've done the book launch series and got that over and done with, we need to arrange similar sessions with people who may not have been featured in the book, just as a way of inspiring new PFPs and to get them to think about what's possible.
Yeah, even if this could be in a video, you know, where they can look at it, and it's a beautiful story.
Yeah, so what we will do, and we are going to ask the comms team to help us with that, is that we will be creating the video. Actually, I should stop recording now. We'll be creating the video